Imagine billions of stars surrounding us, millions of planets, and perhaps many of them harboring life. But the question remains, if the universe is so vast, why haven't we encountered any other civilization yet? Are we alone, or is there something? That destroys every civilization before they can meet each other. Today, we're going to dive into an extremely mysterious and mind-bending concept that will both put you to sleep and force you to think deeply. Asterisk, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and embark with me on a cosmic journey. Breathe slowly and imagine that infinite sky where countless stars twinkle. Every star, like our sun, has planets orbiting around it. Some of these planets would be small, some gigantic, some covered in ice, and some perhaps warm and suitable. For life, just like Earth, when we look at the night sky, that void we see isn't actually empty. It's filled with mysteries, possibilities, and countless questions that the human mind has asked for centuries. This is the oldest and deepest question of all. Are we alone? Is life only on Earth or somewhere else in some distant constellation? Is there someone else asking the same question? Asterisk, when scientists first began thinking that life might exist in the universe. This idea wasn't as strange as people initially thought. Because mathematically speaking, if our galaxy, the Milky Way, has approximately 400 billion stars, and each star has an average of 5 planets orbiting it, that means there could be approximately 2 trillion planets in our galaxy. Alone, and this is just one galaxy. There are billions of such galaxies in the universe. So, with so many planets, why haven't we received any signal yet? No radio message from anywhere, no spaceship, no intelligent voice. Just a deep, mysterious silence. Asterisk, this is what's called the Fermi Paradox. The name comes from a scientist named Enrico Fermi. One day in 1950, Fermi was having lunch with his colleagues. The conversation was about flying saucers and extraterrestrial life. Suddenly, he asked a straightforward question. Where is everybody? This question may seem very simple, but it became one of the deepest questions in modern astronomy. Because when we look at the statistics, it seems almost certain that life must exist somewhere. But when we look at the sky, we see only silence. Asterisk, think about it. If life on Earth formed after so many coincidences, isn't it possible that a similar miracle occurred on some other planet? When scientists created the Drake equation, they tried to frame this question mathematically. In this equation, they included several factors, such as how many stars are formed, how many of them have planets, how many of those planets are suitable. For life, how many of them actually developed life, and how many of those became intelligent. When the possibilities were added to this equation, the result was clear. We cannot be alone. Somewhere, around some other star on some other planet, there must be other life. But then why haven't we found anyone? Asterisk, this is where the search for that silence begins. Many people have said that perhaps we're too small, our technology too limited. Maybe they've seen us, but we can't see them. Some have said that maybe they're too far away, so far that their signals would take millions of years to reach us. Some scientists have also thought that perhaps every civilization's lifespan is very short. They begin, evolve, and then end for some reason before they can communicate with anyone else in space. This very idea later became the Great Filter Hypothesis. Asterisk, but before we get there, we need to understand why this silence is so mysterious. Imagine if there were also a civilization on some distant planet that, like us, sends radio waves or light. Signals. Those signals should be detectable by our telescopes. We've been trying for decades. Institutions like SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, have been continuously listening to space. We pointed our largest radio telescopes at the sky, like the Arecibo Observatory, and tried to decode signals coming from deep space. But the result has been only a few strange, unclear signals whose source was never confirmed. Asterisk. The most famous was the WOW signal. In 1977, a radio telescope picked up a very powerful signal that lasted for 72 seconds. It was so precise and intense that scientists wrote "wow" next to it. But this signal was never repeated. No one knows where it came from, whether from some natural phenomenon or from some civilization. And then after that, again, the same silence. Perhaps this is the most frightening thing, that silence. Because if there were millions of civilizations in the universe, the sky would be filled with noise. From every direction, some signal, some trace would come. But no, all around there's only darkness and silence. Asterisk, slowly. Scientists began to realize that perhaps this silence isn't a coincidence. Maybe there's something that stops every civilization, a point that's almost impossible to cross. And if a civilization can't cross it, it gets wiped out. That filter is perhaps the wall that stands in the path of every advanced civilization. This very idea is the Great Filter Hypothesis. It says that somewhere in the universe there comes a stage where almost every civilization stops. They can't move forward. Due to some natural reasons or self-created destruction, they end their own existence before they can communicate with anyone else in space. Asterisk. Now think about this. If this is true, then there are only two possibilities. First, that this filter is behind us, meaning we've crossed the most difficult stage. We're lucky that life was born on Earth, became intelligent, and now we're beginning to understand space. If this is the case, then we're a rare miracle. But the second possibility is even more terrifying, that this filter is still ahead of us. We haven't crossed that wall yet, and one day when we reach that level, what happened to other civilizations will happen to us too. Like them, we too will be wiped out. Asterisk, this idea is as frightening as it is profound, because it forces us to think not only about the universe, but also about ourselves. What are we doing? Will we survive? Is our civilization also moving toward that same filter? But before understanding all this, we need to know what this filter is, how it works, and who first proposed this idea. After slowly close your eyes, take a deep breath, and think, if the universe is so vast, why is its silence so deep? Does this silence point to some terrifying truth, or is it just a reflection of our own limitations? The silence isn't just a scientific problem, it's also a philosophical experience. Because when you listen to that silence, you feel very small, as if the universe is watching us but not speaking. Asterisk, there could be many possibilities behind this silence. Maybe they're too far away, so far that their messages simply can't reach us. Or maybe their method of communication is beyond our understanding. Think about it, like an ant standing next to a massive radio tower in the middle of a huge city might never understand what it is. Similarly, we too might be incapable of understanding some advanced conversation happening in the universe. Some scientists believe that civilizations might be self-limiting. They deliberately hide themselves because perhaps there's something in the universe that destroys them when they reveal themselves too much. This idea is also known as the dark forest hypothesis. Imagine the dark forest where every creature hides. To survive, if anyone makes a sound, a predator finds them. Perhaps civilizations are also silent out of that fear, so that some cosmic predator doesn't see them. Asterisk, perhaps the real reason is our own limitations. The technology we're searching with is still very primitive. The signals we're expecting might have become outdated. If a civilization is 10,000 years ahead of us, they might be using a completely different communication medium instead of radio waves, such as quantum communication or technology based on physics principles we haven't even discovered yet. And it's possible they've tried to talk to us, but we just couldn't hear them. Asterisk, it's also possible that they no longer exist. They might have already collided with the Great Filter. They couldn't move forward and got lost on their own created path. This silence shakes us not just scientifically, but emotionally as well. When we look towards space, we look within ourselves. We think that if the universe is so vast, perhaps it's deliberately silent. Maybe it's teaching us patience. Maybe it's waiting for us to first bring peace to our own home before questioning the sky. Asterisk. Sometimes this silence doesn't seem frightening, but rather peaceful. Because there's a kind of balance in it, an order, a gentleness, like some infinite state of meditation. Every star, every planet is silent in its own place, stable. And within this stability, perhaps the universe's true music is hidden. If we listen very deeply, Maybe we'll realize that the universe is speaking. It's just that its language is beyond our understanding. It tells us something in every sunrise, every heartbeat, every gust of wind. But we can't hear it in our own noise. Asterisk yet. Humanity hasn't remained silent. We've sent messages to the universe ourselves. In 1974, the Arecibo message was sent into space. A digital message containing Earth's map, the structure of DNA, and an image of a human figure. This message was sent toward a distant star, M13, which is 25,000 light years away. If there's a civilization there, they'll receive this message in 25,000 years. And if they respond, their answer will take another 25,000 years to reach us. That means we'd have to wait 50,000 years for a simple hello. This idea is both beautiful and deeply humbling. Similarly sent golden records on the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 spacecraft. These records contain 115 images, greetings in 90 languages, and Earth's natural sounds, like the sound of waves, the gust of wind, and a child's laughter. Perhaps someday some civilization will find them and know that once on a blue planet, there was life sending messages of its existence to the stars. Asterisk, this silence frightens us, but also teaches us. Sometimes it makes us aware of our limitations, sometimes of our responsibility. If there really is no one else in the universe, this could also mean that we're the only ones who can experience it. We're that rare consciousness that knows this vast universe. Therefore, it's our duty not to destroy it, because perhaps this is the filter itself. Civilizations destroy themselves before they reach others. And if this is true, then silence isn't just a mystery, but also a warning. Asterisk, the universe is perhaps telling us just this: be careful. The path you're traveling is difficult. Many civilizations didn't make it this far. Breathe slowly. Feel this silence. It's not frightening. It's just deep. The distance between every star, the silence of every light year, this is what tells the story of our existence. We're small, but we can listen. We're weak, but we can think. And perhaps this is the greatest power, the ability to listen. Asterisk now. That we felt this silence of the universe, the next question arises. If this silence exists for a reason, what is that reason? What forces stop every civilization? Where is that filter hidden that doesn't let life move forward? This story begins in the latter half of the 20th century, when humanity first started measuring its existence on a cosmic scale. Science, technology, and space exploration were developing rapidly. We had set foot on the moon. Radio telescopes were listening to the depths of space. But along with this, a disturbing question also began to emerge. If we can do all this, where's everyone else? Asterisk, in searching for an answer to this question, scientists adopted a new perspective. They thought, is it possible that life is born again and again, but stops at some point every time? Could there be certain stages in life's evolution that are almost impossible to cross? This idea gradually took shape, and thus was born the theory we call the Great Filter Hypothesis. Asterisk. This idea was clearly articulated in words by a philosopher and scientist named Nick Bostrom, who is associated with Oxford University. Bostrom said, if life is common in the universe, we should see civilizations everywhere. But if we don't see anyone, it means there's a filter that prevents most civilizations from moving forward. He defined this filter as any difficult stage in life's evolutionary journey. Life goes through many milestones, the formation of an Earth-like place, the beginning of life, the formation of complex cells, the development of intelligence, the rise of a technological civilization. And in one of these stages, there's an obstacle that ends almost all attempts. Asterisk, that is, even if life starts on a planet, it might not be able to move forward. Or even if intelligent life forms, it heads toward its own destruction. This idea was as logical as it was terrifying, because it meant that if there's no one else in the universe, either we've achieved the impossible, or we're moving toward that same wall that wipes out every civilization. Asterisk. Bostrom used the example of a ladder to explain this idea. Imagine life. Climbing a ladder, each step is a new stage. The first step is the beginning of life. The second step is the formation of complex cells. The third step is the rise of multicellular organisms. The fourth step is the development of intelligent beings. The fifth step is technological civilization. And the last step is interstellar expansion. Now think. If every civilization climbs this ladder, most civilizations stop at some step or another. That step is the filter. And if this filter is at the bottom, meaning it's very rare for life to begin it all, then we're extremely lucky to have crossed it. But if this filter is at the top, meaning when a civilization reaches the technological level is when its downfall occurs, then it means our end is perhaps coming soon. This idea frightens us, but also reminds us of our responsibility. Because perhaps we're that rare exception who's been given this opportunity to save ourselves. Now let's reconsider Fermi's question. Where is everybody? According to Bostrom theory, the answer is very straightforward. They all got lost along the way. Someone started the journey, but didn't reach the end. Someone created technology, but that very technology destroyed them. Someone discovered energy, but that energy itself became the destruction of their planet. This filter isn't made of just one thing. It can be both natural and self-inflicted. Sometimes it's a change in the planet's atmosphere. Sometimes it's a pandemic, sometimes war, sometimes losing control of uncontrolled artificial intelligence. Every civilization somehow falls on its own created path. The more powerful they become, the more they become a threat to their own existence. Here comes a very interesting but uncomfortable idea. If tomorrow we discover fossilized life on another planet, it would be bad news for us. Why? Because it would mean that the beginning of life is easy. So the filter isn't behind us, but ahead of us. This means that most civilizations reach the technological level and then destroy themselves. And we're perhaps on that same path. But if we don't find any trace of life anywhere, it would be good news. Because it would mean that the beginning of life itself is very difficult, and we've crossed that rare obstacle. We're perhaps the universe's first conscious beings who've climbed this high on the journey's ladder. This idea deeply carries both hope and fear together, because every possibility carries a message with it. Either we're impossibly lucky or on an extremely dangerous journey. The great filter can be of two types: natural filter and self-inflicted filter. Natural filter means natural obstacles that prevent life from moving forward, such as an unstable planetary atmosphere, constant meteor impacts, solar radiation, or biological imbalance. Due to these reasons, life never becomes permanent. On the other hand, the self-inflicted filter is far more terrifying. It comes when a civilization destroys itself with its own power, such as nuclear war, climate change, resource exploitation, or losing control of artificial intelligence. Bostrom said, "If we're here today, this is the rarest moment in the universe's history." The meaning of this statement is very deep, because if the filter truly exists, we're living in that very small window where life has begun to recognize itself. Or that very moment when the universe saw it through our eyes. This idea is a spiritual experience in itself. It leads, it's not just to the search for external life, but also toward internal understanding. Because this filter isn't just in space. It's within us too. Our greed, our imbalance, our violence are the very elements that won't let us move forward. If we have to cross the great filter, first we have to break the limitations within ourselves. Bostrom's theory should be seen not as a scary warning, but as an opportunity. It reminds us that we're at that point where decisions matter. Whatever we choose, technology, environment, peace, or war, will determine whether we can cross that wall or not. If we make balance, cooperation, and wisdom our path, perhaps we can become the first civilization to cross the great filter. The silence of the universe is teaching us that survival isn't just about advanced technology or interstellar travel. It's about wisdom, about understanding our place in the cosmos, about learning to live in harmony with ourselves and our planet. Every decision we make today echoes through the future of our species. Every act of preservation, every moment of peace, every step toward understanding brings us closer to answering that cosmic question. Can we survive? Asterisk, when we look at human history, we see patterns that concern us. We've developed weapons capable of destroying ourselves multiple times over. We've altered our planet's climate in ways that threaten our survival. We've created artificial intelligences whose full implications we don't yet understand. We stand at a precipice, and the Great Filter Hypothesis suggests that this precipice is exactly where most civilizations fail. They reach a level of technological capability that outpaces their wisdom, and they stumble, consider nuclear weapons. For the first time in history, humanity possessed the power to end all human civilization within hours. During the Cold War, we came terrifyingly close to using that power. There were moments when the world balanced on a knife's edge, when a single miscommunication or technical error could have triggered global annihilation. We survived those moments not because of any inherent wisdom, but partly through luck, partly through the courage of individuals who chose reason over protocol. Climate change presents another potential filter. As civilizations grow more advanced, they consume more energy and resources. They alter their environment in profound ways. If they don't develop sustainable technologies before crossing critical thresholds, they render their own planet uninhabitable. We're watching this unfold in real time. Rising temperatures, melting ice caps, extreme weather events. These aren't distant threats, but present realities. The question isn't whether we'll face consequences, but whether we'll address them before those consequences become irreversible. Artificial intelligence represents perhaps the most unpredictable potential filter. As we develop systems that match and exceed human intelligence, we enter uncharted territory. An advanced AI with goals misaligned with human welfare could pose existential risks. The challenge isn't creating intelligent machines. We're already well on that path, but ensuring those machines remain beneficial, controllable, and aligned with human values. Many researchers in the field express deep concerns about our ability to navigate this transition safely. Biotechnology offers both tremendous promise and profound risk. The same tools that could eliminate diseases and extend human life could also create engineered pathogens far more dangerous than anything nature has produced. As this technology becomes more accessible, the potential for catastrophic misuse increases. A civilization that develops advanced biotechnology without adequate safeguards could face self-inflicted pandemics that dwarf any natural outbreak. Resource depletion and ecological collapse present more gradual but equally serious threats. Every civilization needs resources to survive and grow, but finite planets have finite resources. If a civilization consumes faster than resources can replenish, it faces collapse. We're seeing this in our own depletion of fossil fuels, fresh water, fertile soil, and biodiversity. The question is whether we can transition to sustainable systems before critical resources run out. These aren't abstract, distant threats. They're challenges we're facing right now in our time. And this is precisely why the Great Filter Hypothesis feels so personal, so immediate. We might be living through our civilization's filter moment, that critical period when we either develop the wisdom to match our power or join the silent majority of civilizations that never made it through. But the Great Filter Hypothesis doesn't have to be a prophecy of doom. It can be a call to action, a reminder of what's at stake. Understanding these risks is the first step toward addressing them. And humans have shown remarkable capacity for cooperation and problem solving when we recognize existential threats. Think about the ozone layer depletion. When scientists discovered that CFCs were destroying the ozone layer, threatening life on Earth with increased radiation, the world came together. The Montreal Protocol, signed by countries across the globe, phased out these dangerous chemicals. The ozone layer is now recovering. This shows that humanity can act collectively to prevent catastrophic outcomes when we understand the risks and have the will to act. The eradication of smallpox demonstrates our capacity to overcome seemingly impossible challenges. This disease killed hundreds of millions throughout history. Through coordinated global effort, through vaccination campaigns that reached even the most remote communities, we eliminated it entirely from nature. This wasn't easy. It required unprecedented cooperation, persistence, and resources. But we did it. Asterisk. These examples give us hope. They show that the great filter isn't necessarily insurmountable. But they also show what it takes to overcome such challenges: global cooperation, long-term thinking, willingness to sacrifice short-term gains for long-term survival, and most importantly, the wisdom to act before it's too late. Asterisk the question of whether the filter is behind us or ahead of us isn't just academic. If the filter is primarily behind us, if the emergence of life, the development of complex organisms, the evolution of intelligence are the truly rare and difficult steps, then we're extraordinarily fortunate. We've already beaten incredible odds. The road ahead might be clearer. Other civilizations might be rare, not because they destroy themselves, but because they never get started in the first place. Asterisk, this would explain the silence. Not as a warning of our impending doom, but as evidence of our exceptional luck. In this scenario, we might genuinely be alone or nearly alone in the universe, not because civilizations fail, but because they rarely begin. Earth's particular combination of circumstances, its position in the habitable zone, its large moon stabilizing its rotation, its magnetic field protecting it from solar radiation, its plate tectonics recycling nutrients, might be far rarer than we think. Asterisk, the formation of life itself might be the great filter. Despite decades of research, we still don't fully understand how non-living matter organized itself into the first living cells. The gap between the most complex chemicals and the simplest life seems enormous. Perhaps that gap is so difficult to cross that it happens only incredibly rarely. If so, Earth is a precious anomaly, and we should cherish it accordingly. Asterisk the evolution of complex cells represents another potential filter behind us. For billions of years, life on Earth consisted only of simple, single-celled organisms. The development of eukaryotic cells, complex cells with nuclei, and specialized internal structures was apparently so difficult that it happened only once in Earth's entire history. Every complex organism, from trees to humans, descends from that single evolutionary event. If such developments are extremely rare, we've already passed through extraordinary bottlenecks. Asterisk intelligence itself might be the rare breakthrough. Despite billions of years of evolution and countless species, only one humans has developed technology creating intelligence. Even our closest relatives, despite being highly intelligent, don't create cumulative culture or technology the way we do. Perhaps the kind of intelligence that leads to civilization is exceedingly rare, requiring very specific environmental pressures and evolutionary paths. Asterisk if these are the true filters. If the hard steps are behind us, then the universe might genuinely be ours to explore. The silence wouldn't be a warning, but an invitation. Other civilizations might not exist, not because they destroyed themselves, but because they never arose. We would have responsibility not just for our own survival, but for bringing consciousness and meaning to an otherwise unconscious cosmos. Asterisk, but we can't be certain. We can't know if the filter is behind us or ahead, and that uncertainty should make us cautious. It should make us thoughtful about every step we take, every technology we develop, every change we make to our world. Because if the filter is ahead of us, if civilizations typically destroy themselves after reaching our level of development, then our decisions now matter more than any decisions humans have ever made. Asterisk. Consider the Fermi Paradox again with this context. The universe should be teeming with life. The math suggests millions of civilizations should exist in our galaxy alone. Yet we hear nothing, see nothing, detect nothing. This silence, this absence, is one of the most profound mysteries we face. And the Great Filter hypothesis offers a chilling explanation. They started, they grew, they developed technology. They faced their crucial test, and they failed. Asterisk. Maybe they encountered runaway climate change and couldn't adapt fast enough. Maybe they developed weapons that destroyed them in wars of ideology or resources. Maybe they created artificial intelligences that didn't share their values. Maybe they exhausted their planet's resources without finding alternatives. Maybe they succumbed to biological warfare or engineered plagues. Maybe they fell victim to cosmic events we haven't even imagined. Asterisk, or maybe, and this is perhaps the most disturbing possibility, they reached a level similar to ours and simply stopped progressing. Not through catastrophic destruction, but through stagnation. Perhaps civilizations reach a point of comfort and stability and lose the drive to explore, expand, or communicate. They turn inward, focused on their own worlds, never venturing to the stars. They exist, but remain silent, invisible, isolated. Asterisk, this possibility suggests a different kind of filter. Not destruction, but domestication. Civilizations might naturally lose interest in cosmic expansion once they solve their basic needs and create comfortable existences. Space is hard. It's expensive, dangerous, and offers uncertain rewards. Why venture into the void when everything you need is at home? Why shout into the darkness when you're content in the light? Asterisk, if this is the filter, then maybe the universe isn't silent with the silence of the dead, but with the silence of the content. Civilizations exist, but choose not to reach out, not to expand, not to make themselves known. They live quiet lives on their homeworlds, perhaps developing rich internal civilizations. Virtual realities or philosophical traditions that make the physical exploration of space seem crude and unnecessary. Asterisk. This interpretation is less frightening, but equally challenging. It suggests that maintaining the drive to explore, to question, to reach beyond what's comfortable requires deliberate effort and cultural values that resist complacency. It suggests that curiosity itself might be rare or fragile, something that needs to be cultivated and protected. Asterisk, whatever the nature of the filter. The Great Filter hypothesis fundamentally changes how we should think about humanity's future. It's not enough to survive day to day or generation to generation. If we want to become a spacefaring civilization, if we want to ensure humanity's long-term future, we need to think on cosmic timescales. We need to make decisions that account for consequences centuries or millennia ahead. This long-term thinking doesn't come naturally to humans. We evolved to deal with immediate threats and opportunities. Our brains are wired for the timescales of individual lives, not civilizations. Yet now we're making decisions about climate, about artificial intelligence, about genetic engineering, about nuclear weapons, whose consequences will echo for thousands of years. We need to develop institutions, values, and ways of thinking that can handle this responsibility. Asterisk, some researchers and philosophers have started exploring what this might mean practically. They talk about existential risk management, systematically, identifying and mitigating threats to human survival. They discuss the importance of developing robust, decentralized systems that can withstand catastrophes. They emphasize the need for international cooperation on issues that transcend national boundaries. They argue for investing in research on potentially dangerous technologies before those technologies are deployed widely. Asterisk, these might sound like abstract concerns, but they have concrete implications. Should we pause development of certain AI systems until we better understand their risks? Should we invest more in asteroid detection and deflection? Should we create backup populations on other worlds or in space habitats? Should we preserve genetic and cultural diversity as insurance against catastrophes? Should we establish ethical guidelines for biotechnology research? These are questions that our generation must grapple with. The Great Filter hypothesis also raises profound questions about our relationship with other potential life in the universe. If we ever do detect signs of extraterrestrial civilization, the filter hypothesis suggests we should be very careful about how we respond. Other civilizations might be hiding for good reasons. Making ourselves known might attract unwanted attention. from forces we don't understand. Asterisk, this is the logic behind the dark forest hypothesis mentioned earlier. If resources are limited and civilizations compete for them, if the universe is dangerous and trust is impossible, then the safest strategy is silence. Any civilization that reveals itself becomes vulnerable to preemptive attack from others who view them as potential threats. In this scenario, the universe might be full of civilizations, all hiding from each other in fear, creating a vast cosmic standoff. Asterisk, this seems paranoid, but it reflects a real strategic dilemma. When we send messages into space or broadcast our presence with radio and television signals, we're making ourselves known to anyone who might be listening. We're assuming that whoever receives these messages will be benevolent or at least indifferent. But we have no basis for that assumption. We don't know what's out there. We don't know how other intelligences might think or what they might value. Asterisk. Some scientists argue we should stop broadcasting and instead focus only on listening. Others argue this is overly cautious, that any civilization capable of interstellar travel would have resources enough that Earth would be of little interest, and that any truly malevolent civilization would have found us already through our inadvertent signals. The debate continues, but it illustrates how the Great Filter hypothesis affects even our most basic assumptions about how we should interact with the cosmos. Asterisk. Beyond the immediate survival questions, the Great Filter hypothesis touches on deeper philosophical issues about meaning and purpose. If we're alone in the universe, if we're the only conscious beings capable of understanding and appreciating existence, then we bear an enormous responsibility. We become the universe's way of knowing itself. Our survival isn't just about our own species, but about consciousness itself. Asterisk, this perspective can be overwhelming, but it can also be empowering. It suggests that our everyday actions matter on a cosmic scale. How we treat each other, how we care for our planet, how we develop our technologies, what values we choose to emphasize. All of these shape whether consciousness persists in the universe or flickers out. We're not just living our individual lives. We're participating in something vastly larger. Asterisk, different philosophical and spiritual traditions have grappled with similar ideas. The concept of humans as stewards of creation appears in many religious contexts. The idea that consciousness is precious and rare echoes through contemplative traditions. The recognition that our actions have consequences beyond our immediate perception is fundamental to many ethical systems. The Great Filter hypothesis takes these ancient insights and frames them in the context of modern cosmology, giving them new urgency and scope. Asterisk, it's worth considering what kind of civilization would most likely survive the Great Filter. What characteristics would such a civilization need? Based on our understanding of the risks, we can make some educated guesses. A surviving civilization would likely be asterisk wise enough to recognize existential risks before they manifest catastrophically. This requires robust science, freedom of inquiry, and institutions that can think long-term. It requires listening to warnings even when they're uncomfortable, acting on probabilities rather than waiting for certainties. Asterisk, unified enough to coordinate responses to global threats. The challenges we face, climate change, nuclear proliferation, pandemic preparedness, AI safety, transcend national boundaries. A civilization hopelessly divided into competing factions might struggle to address them effectively. This doesn't necessarily mean world government, but it does mean effective international cooperation and shared purpose on crucial issues. Asterisk, ethical enough to restrain its own power. Having the capability to do something doesn't mean we should do it. A civilization that can't exercise self-restraint, that pursues every possible technology without considering consequences, likely destroys itself eventually. We need wisdom to match our power, ethics to guide our capabilities, asterisk, diverse and resilient enough to survive catastrophes. Putting all our eggs in one basket, all of humanity on one planet, creates vulnerability. Multiple independent populations, whether on different worlds or in self-sufficient habitats, increase the chances that some would survive even catastrophic events. Diversity of thought, culture, and approach increases our collective problem-solving capacity. Asterisk curious and exploratory. Enough to keep pushing boundaries. Stagnation might be a filter too. A civilization that stops exploring, stops questioning, stops reaching for new frontiers might gradually decline. Maintaining the spirit of inquiry and adventure might be necessary for long-term survival. Asterisk humble. Enough to recognize our limitations. Overconfidence leads to recklessness. A civilization that thinks it has all the answers, that underestimates risks or overestimates its control, is vulnerable. Recognizing what we don't know, maintaining appropriate caution, staying alert to possibilities we haven't imagined. These might be crucial survival traits. Asterisk looking at human civilization today. We have some of these characteristics, but not others. We have remarkable scientific capabilities and pockets of effective international cooperation. We have growing awareness of existential risks and people working to address them. But we also have deep divisions, short-term thinking, and difficulty. Coordinating on global problems. We're a work in progress, still figuring out whether we have what it takes to pass through the filter. The silence of the universe weighs on us. Every year we listen and detect nothing. Every survey of exoplanets reveals no obvious signs of astroengineering or civilization. Every search comes up empty. This could mean we're looking in the wrong ways, at the wrong times, for the wrong things. Or it could mean the Great Filter is real and effective, asterisk, as we've discussed. Finding microbial life on other worlds would have disturbing implications. It would suggest life arises relatively easily, which means the filter must come later, possibly at our stage or beyond. The more common we discover life to be, the more ominous our future looks, paradoxically. Every discovery of life elsewhere would be simultaneously exciting and threatening, asterisk conversely. Finding absolutely no trace of life anywhere else would suggest we're extraordinarily special. The filter would be behind us in the formation of life, development of complexity, or evolution of intelligence. This would be simultaneously isolating and reassuring. We would be alone, but safe, unique, but not doomed. There's something profound in this cosmic solitude we find ourselves in. Whether temporary or permanent, whether representative, all civilization, or unique to us, this moment of questioning, searching, listening has its own meaning. We stand at the boundary of knowledge, peering into darkness, hoping for answers, preparing for silence. Asterisk, the Great Filter hypothesis, ultimately, isn't about predicting our doom or guaranteeing our survival. It's about recognizing the magnitude of what we're attempting. Becoming a lasting, spacefaring civilization isn't easy or automatic. It might be extraordinarily difficult, so difficult that most fail. Understanding this should inform everything. We do, asterisk, it should make us more careful with our planet. Recognizing it's not just our home, but potentially consciousness' only home. It should make us more thoughtful about technology, developing it deliberately rather than recklessly. It should make us more cooperative, recognizing we face challenges that require working together. It should make us more humble, acknowledging how much we don't know and how easily we could get things wrong. Asterisk, but it should also inspire us. Because if the Great Filter is real, if most civilizations fail, then success isn't inevitable, which means it matters. Our choices matter. Our actions matter. We're not just following some predetermined script, but actively determining our future. We have agency in the most important story ever told. The story of whether conscious life persists in the universe. Asterisk. Every generation faces its own challenges, but ours might face the defining challenge, passing through the filter. Whether through preventing nuclear war, addressing climate change, developing beneficial AI, preventing engineered pandemics, or challenges we haven't yet imagined, will determine whether humans have a future measured in millions of years or just in decades. Asterisk, the universe is watching, or more precisely, we're watching ourselves on the universe's behalf. We're the universe's eyes and ears. Its capacity for self-reflection, whether that continues, depends on us. The silence of the cosmos might be a warning of failure, or it might be a blank canvas waiting for us to fill it with meaning. Which it becomes depends on the choices we make now, today, in this critical moment of human history. Asterisk. The weight of this responsibility can feel crushing at times. We're finite beings with limited lifespans, trying to make decisions that will echo across millennia. We're emotional creatures prone to bias and error, tasked with thinking rationally about existential risks. We're social animals evolved for tribal groups, now needing to coordinate across billions of people with different cultures, beliefs, and interests. The mismatch between our capabilities and our challenges is stark and undeniable. Asterisk. Yet this mismatch isn't unique to existential risks. Throughout history, humans have faced problems that seemed impossibly large. We've confronted diseases that killed millions, developed systems to feed billions, created technologies that would seem like magic to our ancestors. We've shown remarkable capacity for growth, adaptation, and collective achievement when circumstances demanded it. The question is whether we can summon that capacity now, when the stakes are higher than ever before. Asterisk. One of the most challenging aspects of the Great Filter is its invisibility until it's too late. Unlike predators our ancestors could see, fight, unlike storms they could shelter from, the filter operates on scales that make it difficult to perceive and address. Climate change unfolds over decades, each year's change subtle enough to normalize. Nuclear weapons haven't been used in warfare since 1945, making their threat seem abstract despite their continued existence. Artificial intelligence develops incrementally, each advance seeming manageable even as the aggregate trajectory might lead somewhere dangerous. Asterisk. This gradual nature of existential risks makes them psychologically difficult to confront. Our brains are wired to respond to immediate visible threats, the predator in the shadows, the rival tribe on the horizon. We're less equipped to respond to statistical risks, delayed consequences, or abstract dangers. This is why people might fear plane crashes more than car accidents despite the statistics. Why we might worry about shark attacks but not heart disease. The Great Filter plays on these cognitive weaknesses. Asterisk. Overcoming these psychological barriers requires deliberate effort. It requires education systems that help people understand probability, statistics, and long-term thinking. It requires media that communicates complex risks without sensationalizing or trivializing them. It requires leaders who can articulate existential challenges in ways that motivate action without causing paralyzing despair. It requires building institutions designed to think and act on longer timescales than election cycles or quarterly earnings reports. Asterisk. Some researchers have proposed specific mechanisms for addressing this. Future-oriented governance structures that give representation to future generations. Constitutional provisions that protect long-term interests against short-term pressures. International bodies with real authority on global risks. Markets that properly price externalities and long-term consequences. None of these are easy to implement, but they represent attempts to align our decision-making structures with the timescales we now need to consider. The role of technology in all this is deeply ambiguous. Technology creates many of the risks we face: nuclear weapons, climate change from fossil fuels, potential AI misalignment. Yet technology also offers potential solutions: renewable energy to address climate change, medical advances to combat pandemics, space technology to create backup populations, artificial intelligence to help us solve problems too complex for unaided human thinking. The question isn't whether to embrace or reject technology, but how to guide its development wisely. This requires what some call differential technological development, accelerating development of protective and beneficial technologies while slowing or being more careful with dangerous ones. We should rush to develop clean energy, but be cautious with synthetic biology. We should eagerly pursue technologies that help us detect asteroids, but carefully consider those that could enable new forms of warfare. We should welcome innovations that improve human welfare, but scrutinize those that concentrate power or reduce. Human agency, asterisk. Making these distinctions isn't always easy. Technologies that seem purely beneficial can have unexpected consequences. The internet connected humanity and democratized information, but also enabled surveillance, spread misinformation, and created new forms of social control. Nuclear power offered clean energy, but created proliferation risks and waste disposal challenges. Genetic engineering promises to eliminate diseases, but raises questions about human enhancement and equity. Every powerful technology is double-edged, and wielding it safely requires constant vigilance and adaptive governance. Asterisk, the question of human nature becomes crucial here. Are we fundamentally capable of the wisdom needed to survive the great filter? Or are we inherently too tribalistic, too short-sighted, too aggressive to manage our own power? This is one of the deepest questions raised by the filter hypothesis, and it doesn't have an easy answer. Asterisk optimists point to human moral progress. Despite sensationalist news, violence has declined dramatically over human history. We've expanded our circle of moral concern from immediate family to tribe to nation to humanity, and increasingly to other species. We've developed international law, human rights, and global cooperation on many issues. We've shown capacity for change when we recognize the need for it. This suggests we might be capable of further growth, further expansion of our moral and intellectual capacities to match our technological power. Asterisk. Pessimists counter that this progress is fragile and possibly illusory. We've reduced violence while increasing our capacity for it, creating a more dangerous situation, even if we use that capacity less frequently. Our moral concern expands in comfortable times, but contracts rapidly under stress. Our cooperation depends on complex systems that could collapse under pressure. Human nature evolved in very different circumstances than we now face, and there's no guarantee it's adequate for the challenges ahead. Asterisk, the truth likely lies between these extremes. We're neither doomed by our nature nor guaranteed to transcend it. We're capable of both great wisdom and terrible folly, both remarkable cooperation and devastating conflict. Which aspects of our nature prevail will depend partly on the systems, institutions, and cultures we build. We're not fixed in stone, but continuously shaped by our environment and choices. And this gives us agency, but also responsibility for consciously guiding our own development. Asterisk. Some thinkers have proposed that passing through the great filter might require not just technological or institutional changes, but a fundamental transformation in human consciousness. A shift from seeing ourselves as separate individuals and nations to recognizing our deep interconnection. A movement from valuing short-term gains to appreciating long-term sustainability. An expansion from identifying with our tribe or species to embracing our role as conscious beings in the cosmos. This sounds abstract, even mystical, but it has concrete implications. If we genuinely felt our connection to future generations, we'd make very different choices about climate change. If we truly recognized our dependence on Earth's ecosystems, we'd treat them with more care. If we deeply understood our cosmic solitude and responsibility, we'd approach existential risks with appropriate seriousness. The challenge is making these intellectual understandings feel real and immediate enough to guide behavior. Asterisk, various spiritual and philosophical traditions have long worked on this kind of consciousness transformation. Practices like meditation aim to expand awareness and reduce ego-driven behavior. Philosophies emphasizing interconnection challenge individualistic worldviews. Cosmological perspectives that situate humanity, the vastness of space and time, can shift priorities and values. While these traditions develop for different purposes, they might offer tools relevant to our current predicament. Asterisk. This doesn't mean everyone needs to become philosophers or contemplatives, but it does suggest that cultural values, dominant narratives, and shared meaning-making matter immensely. A civilization that sees itself as a collection of competing groups fighting over scarce resources will behave very differently from one that sees itself as a single community navigating shared challenges. A society that measures success primarily in material consumption will make different choices than one that values sustainability and long-term flourishing. Asterisk changing these deep cultural patterns isn't easy or quick. It happens through education, art, storytelling, leadership, and countless individual choices that collectively shift what seems normal and desirable. It requires painting a compelling vision of what a filter-passing civilization looks like, not just what we're avoiding, but what we're building toward. It requires making long-term survival and flourishing not just a duty, but an aspiration, something that captures imagination and inspires commitment. Asterisk, the role of meaning and purpose. In all this cannot be overstated. Humans need more than bare survival. We need reasons to survive, purposes that make the effort worthwhile. A civilization focused only on avoiding extinction might succeed, but would be hollow. We need visions of the future that make us want to reach it, that justify the sacrifices and difficult choices required to get there. Asterisk, what might such visions look like? A humanity spread across multiple worlds, ensuring our survival while experiencing the wonder of diverse environments. A civilization that's eliminated poverty and preventable suffering, where every person can develop their potential. A species that's achieved sustainable harmony with its environment, modeling a way of life that could endure for millions of years. A culture that's created enduring art, science, philosophy, and meaning that justify consciousness existence in the universe. These aren't mutually exclusive. They're different facets of what a thriving, filter-passing civilization might encompass. Asterisk, of course, we must be careful about imposing any single vision. Diversity of thought and purpose has survival value. Different communities might have different ideas about what makes life worth living, and that's healthy. The key is finding shared commitments around existential risks while allowing pluralism in how we define flourishing. We need unity on survival without uniformity in everything else. Asterisk, the question of speed is crucial. How much time do we have to navigate the great filter? This is impossible to answer definitively, but various analyses suggest we might be in a critical period. Climate change is already underway, with potential tipping points within decades. AI capabilities are advancing rapidly, possibly reaching transformative levels within our lifetimes. Biotechnology is becoming increasingly powerful and accessible. Nuclear weapons persist as an ongoing threat. We're not safely past the filter yet, and we might be approaching its most dangerous sections. Asterisk, this urgency doesn't mean panicking or making rash decisions. Panic itself could be dangerous, leading to authoritarian crackdowns or hasty technological choices that create new problems. But it does mean we can't afford complacency. We can't assume that someone else will solve these problems, or that technology will automatically save us, or that everything will work out because it always has. The filter hypothesis suggests that things don't always work out. Most don't make it. Survival requires intention, effort, and wisdom. Asterisk, one of the most important implications of the great filter hypothesis is that we should be actively researching existential risks. We should be studying these threats systematically, understanding them better, developing responses before we need them. This means funding research into AI safety, pandemic preparedness, climate solutions, nuclear security, and other critical areas. It means creating academic fields and institutions dedicated to understanding and mitigating existential risks. Asterisk, this research exists, but remains underfunded and marginalized compared to its importance. More money goes into developing new smartphone features than into ensuring artificial intelligence remains beneficial. More effort goes into short-term economic optimization than into long-term civilizational resilience. This needs to change. Resources should be proportionate to stakes, and nothing has higher stakes than human survival. Asterisk beyond research. We need to be building the practical infrastructure for resilience. This might include seed vaults preserving genetic diversity, knowledge repositories that could survive catastrophes, distributed food and energy systems that can't fail completely, backup populations in space or underground, and networks of people, prepared to rebuild if necessary. None of this is pleasant to contemplate, but it's prudent risk management when facing existential threats. Asterisk, we should also be actively working to reduce specific risks. Every nuclear weapon dismantled reduces the danger of nuclear war. Every improvement in clean energy technology makes climate solutions more feasible. Every advance in monitoring systems helps us detect threats earlier. Every international agreement on dangerous technologies makes disasters less likely. These are concrete, achievable steps that collectively improve our odds of passing through the filter. Asterisk, the international dimension is particularly challenging and crucial. Existential risks don't respect borders, but our governance systems are primarily national. Creating effective international cooperation without empowering dangerous centralized control is a delicate balance. We need mechanisms for collective action while preserving diversity and preventing abuse of power. This might be one of the most important institutional design challenges humanity faces. Asterisk. Some risks might require restricting certain technologies or activities globally. This raises difficult questions about freedom, sovereignty, and enforcement. How do we prevent the development of extremely dangerous technologies without creating authoritarian oversight? How do we ensure compliance without empowering institutions that could themselves become threats? These aren't just technical questions, but fundamental political and ethical challenges that require careful thought and experimentation. Asterisk, the role of individuals in all this might seem small compared to the scale of the challenges, but it's actually crucial. Civilizations are made of individuals, and collective behavior emerges from countless individual choices. What you choose to care about, how you spend your time and resources, what you communicate to others, what you demand from leaders and institutions, all of this matters. Cultural change happens person by person, conversation by conversation, choice by choice. Asterisk. This doesn't mean everyone needs to become an existential risk researcher or activist. We need people doing countless different things: farming, teaching, creating art, building businesses, raising families. A civilization needs its full diversity of roles and purposes. But everyone can incorporate some awareness of long-term consequences into their decisions. Everyone can be a voice for thinking beyond immediate gains. Everyone can contribute to cultural values that prioritize sustainability. Cooperation and wisdom. Asterisk education is perhaps the most important long-term intervention. What we teach children about their place in the universe, about how to think about risk and the future, about their responsibilities to future generations. This shapes the adults they become and the civilization they build. If we can raise generations that not naturally think on longer timescales, that understand existential risks, that feel connected to the cosmic story, that might be the most powerful way to navigate the great filter. Asterisk. This education shouldn't be dry or frightening. It should inspire wonder at the universe's vastness, curiosity about our place in it, and determination to ensure consciousness persists and flourishes. It should combine scientific understanding with philosophical depth, technical knowledge with ethical wisdom. It should prepare people not for a predetermined future, but to navigate uncertainty with intelligence and integrity. Asterisk, the arts have a crucial role here too. Science explains what is and what might be, but art helps us feel what matters. Stories shape how we understand ourselves and imagine possibilities. Visual arts make abstract concepts visceral. Music evokes emotions that pure reason can't reach. A civilization navigating existential risks needs not just scientists and engineers, but poets and artists who can make these challenges meaningful and motivate commitment to addressing them. Think about how much science fiction has shaped our thinking about technology, space, and the future. Stories have prepared us for possibilities, warned us about dangers, and inspired us to reach for the stars. We need more such stories, but we also need to be thoughtful about the visions they promote. Are we telling stories that inspire wisdom and cooperation, or ones that celebrate recklessness and conflict? Do our narratives acknowledge existential risks, or do they assume humanity's survival is guaranteed? The stories we tell shape the futures we build. Asterisk looking at the great filter. Hypothesis from different cultural perspectives reveals interesting insights. Western thinking tends to be linear and progress-oriented, seeing history as moving toward some endpoint. This makes the filter hypothesis particularly disturbing because it suggests progress might end. Other cultural traditions have more cyclical views, seeing rise and fall as natural patterns. Some philosophical traditions emphasize balance and harmony over growth and expansion. These different perspectives might offer valuable insights for navigating our challenges. Asterisk indigenous wisdom traditions, for example, often emphasize long-term thinking, making decisions considering 7 generations ahead. They frequently see humans as part of nature rather than separate from or superior to it. They value sustainability and balance over unlimited growth. While we shouldn't romanticize any tradition, there might be practical wisdom in these approaches that technologically advanced societies have lost, but need to recover. Asterisk, the great filter hypothesis, also intersects with questions about artificial intelligence in interesting ways. If we successfully develop beneficial AI that surpasses human intelligence, it might help us solve problems too complex for unaided human thought. It could accelerate research into existential risk mitigation, design better institutions, and help coordinate global responses. In this optimistic scenario, AI could be the tool that helps us pass through the filter. Asterisk, but also represents a potential filter itself. An intelligence explosion, rapidly improving itself to far beyond human levels, could pose catastrophic risks if not aligned with human values. An advanced AI with goals even slightly misaligned with human welfare could pose existential threats. The same capabilities that could save us could destroy us, depending on whether we get the alignment problem right. Asterisk. This makes AI safety research perhaps the most important work happening today. Getting AI right could mean passing through the filter successfully. Getting it wrong could mean joining the silent civilizations that never made it. The stakes could hardly be higher, yet this research remains dramatically underfunded compared to AI capabilities research. We're racing to build more powerful AI while barely investing in ensuring it remains beneficial and controllable. Asterisk. The timeline for transformative AI is uncertain. It might be decades away or arrive much sooner. But given the stakes, we should be investing massively in safety research now before we have systems we can't control. We should be developing robust theories of AI alignment, testing them on current systems, and building institutions to govern AI development. We should be fostering international cooperation on AI safety, treating it as a common challenge requiring collective action. Asterisk. Some researchers have proposed that the Great Filter might explain itself in another way. Perhaps advanced civilizations develop technologies that allow them to abandon the physical universe entirely. They might create simulated realities far richer than physical space, or enter states of consciousness we can't imagine. In these scenarios, civilizations don't destroy themselves. They transcend into realms where we can't detect them. The universe appears silent because advanced life exists in dimensions or states we're not equipped to perceive. Asterisk, this is speculative, but it illustrates how the filter might not be what we initially assume. The missing civilizations might not be dead, but transformed, existing in ways that make physical space travel and communication seem primitive. If so, the silence isn't ominous, but simply a sign that we're looking in the wrong places or in the wrong ways. This offers a more hopeful interpretation, though one that's currently impossible to test. Asterisk, another possibility is that we're simply early. The universe is roughly 13.8 billion years old, but complex life might require several generations of stars to create heavy elements. Perhaps intelligent civilizations are only beginning to emerge now across the cosmos. We might be among the first, not the last. If so, The silence isn't a warning, but simply a matter of timing. Other civilizations might arise in the future, and we could be the elder civilization, the first to spread among the stars. Asterisk, this possibility carries its own weight. If we're early, then what we do might set patterns for how intelligent life develops across the cosmos. We might establish norms, values, and approaches that influence others who come after. We might seed the galaxy with life and civilization, or we might fail, and others who come later will find only our ruins and wonder what went wrong. Either way, being early means carrying even greater responsibility. Asterisk, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence continues. Of course, every telescope pointed at the stars, every analysis of exoplanet atmospheres, every monitoring of radio signals represents hope that we'll find others. The discovery of even microbial life elsewhere would revolutionize our understanding of our place in the universe. The detection of technological civilizations would answer questions that have haunted us for generations. Asterisk. But until we find them, if we ever do, we must act as if we're alone. We must take responsibility for consciousness in our corner of the cosmos. We must navigate the great filter without assuming anyone will rescue us or that the universe guarantees our success. We're on our own, at least for now, facing challenges that will determine whether the story of human civilization is a brief flash or a long, brilliant arc across time. Asterisk, the great filter hypothesis ultimately teaches us humility, urgency, and responsibility. Humility because it reminds us how difficult and rare our situation might be, how easily it could all end. Urgency because we might be living through the critical period when our choices determine everything. Responsibility because there's no one else to solve these problems. No guarantee of success, no preset destiny ensuring survival. Asterisk, this combination of humility, urgency, and responsibility should guide our civilization's choices in the coming decades and centuries. Every decision about technology, governance, environment, and values should be made with awareness that we're navigating challenges that have perhaps ended countless other civilizations. We should be bold enough to face these challenges, but wise enough to respect them. We should move forward deliberately, with eyes open to both possibilities and dangers. Asterisk, the universe remains silent, watching our experiment in consciousness. The stars offer no answers, only questions reflected back at us. We stand alone in the darkness, a single candle of awareness in vast emptiness. Whether that candle continues to burn or flickers out depends entirely on us. The great filter awaits, invisible but real, testing whether we have what it takes to persist and flourish. Our response to that test is being written now, in every choice we make, every value we embrace, every action we take toward building a civilization that can endure. Asterisk, this is the story we're living. The most important story ever told, not because we're special or guaranteed to succeed, but precisely because we might fail, and whether we do or don't depends on what we do now. The silence of the universe isn't predestination, but possibility. The emptiness isn't verdict, but invitation. What we make of our moment, how we navigate our challenges, whether we develop the wisdom to match our power, this will determine not just our fate, but perhaps the fate of consciousness itself in our region of the cosmos. Asterisk, sleep. Now, with these thoughts settling into your mind like stars finding their place in the night sky, rest knowing that you're part of this cosmic story, that your existence matters in the vast scheme of things. Dream of futures where humanity has passed through the filter, where we become the wise, enduring civilization we have the potential to be, and wake tomorrow ready to contribute in whatever way you can to making that dream real. The great filter is real, but so is our capacity to overcome it. The universe is watching through our eyes, waiting to see what we become.